Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Byington, and in this video we're going to talk about T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, but this is just a kind of condensed biography of the author and a little background information on this very long poem. T.S. Eliot is predominantly writing in the early 20th century. He's a big part of what we call modernism. If you're a student in my class, you have a couple of videos that introduce you to what that is and what that means. It's especially this poem, The Wasteland, that I'll be talking about, and then also um, his poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Um, some of that you can see those elements of modernism you may have learned about in some of the videos I posted, like the stream of consciousness and such. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But Eliot was born in the US. He becomes an expatriate later on when he moves to London. Um, he was born with a congenital issue that kept him sort of bedridden for a lot of his childhood. And because of that, you could kind of see him not getting to do the typical childhood things like going outside and playing with other children, being stuck in a bed with just books, just being able to read. That really instilled this love of literature in him, but it's also probably what contributes to him being so well read, because he has these things he does in his writing where he references so many other writers and other works in general. So it's sort of like he expects his reader to be as well read as he is. He such a pioneer for the very different way he was approaching poetry that he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1948. Now, this bit about stream of consciousness that I'm mentioning, so that's sort of like if you at least loosely picked a topic and just wrote everything that you thought about involving that topic. It might not always be right on that topic, right? And there's going to be like all these little, all these, this flurry of different ideas, different avenues, and such that come into play. And that's when you have a stream of consciousness writing. There isn't a traditional narrative necessarily being followed, and that's a part of modernism. We're abandoning those traditions, and I don't mean just traditions that people might practice in their home year round. I mean traditions of in the arts. Like we're going into these new areas. There's a lot of experimenting going on. Also, when this poem is published in 1922, it's right after World War One. And so we've had this just absolute devastation, and especially for Eliot, who he moves to London in 1914. So he was living over there during World War One happening, right? So that ended in 1918. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this on November 10th. Tomorrow is Armistice Day, November 11th. They call it that over there in the UK, but and often it's celebrated the whole month over there. Mostly, of course, for veterans in general, but there's a lot of focus on World War One. You'll see people wearing like little red poppy pens and such. Um, they had the most devastating loss. Well, the Allied side in general lost about 9 million people, and to put that into perspective, I think if you Google the population size of New York City, it's something like 8 million people. So add another million onto that, you have the people lost predominantly UK and France, and then the other allies on that side in World War One. Um, but what's happening about that time, it's not just this kind of like a switch was flipped in the perception of reality of are we really this kind of animal that we can do this on such a large scale to other people? And look at the things that people are generally having wars about. It's usually money and religion, things that just, there should be some terms to reach, and these what should now be ideologies that humankind can look at and see through many different lenses. So that whole looking at it through different lenses, looking at it through different perspectives is also being exhibited in the arts, not just the stream of consciousness writing, but also in visual arts. This is the time where you have the beginning of surrealism. So that's things like Salvador Dali. If you've ever seen the painting of the melting clocks, that's him. If you're a student in my class, you're getting a different PowerPoint where I have some of the images, like Rene Magritte, the one of like it's a picture of a pipe, but then written underneath it, it says, "This is not a pipe." Um, the let's see what else. Max Ernst, that's another artist work I have in that PowerPoint slide. So there's a lot of absurdity being experimented with in the visual arts here. And um, I think when people think of things that are more abstract in visual arts, they think of stuff that's just like a bunch of swirls or blocks. And I mean, surrealism takes that breakdown of figuration and rebuilds it with this very sort of avant-garde kind of a different kind of narrative, one that's not part of the tradition of reality we're used to. Maybe the same way that you wouldn't expect a significant conflict like World War One to be a part of your life, something you have to adapt your life to survive. Um, One last note I'll say something about here. In a 2009 biography, Eliot's childhood favorites were are described as being those about the Wild West, and in particular, apparently Tom Sawyer. So that kind of fascination with those settings, you know, it's a landscape that's being taken from indigenous persons, and they're and it's kind of lawless. It's kind of like every man for himself, that kind of reality. So you see him kind of taking his fascination for that and his experience of living through World War One and applying it to the way he's writing about the wasteland, because the wasteland is talking about a sort of no man's land. And I get into that more in the other videos talking about the poem. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.